Hi, and welcome everyone to the presentation of the Polkadot Treasury report. The third quarter of the year 2025 has concluded, and we are in the finishing stretches of the written Treasury report, but we have all the numbers ready, we have all the charts ready, and so we decided that for today, we want to make this broadcast all about the Treasury report. You will get an insight into how much has Polkadot been spending, where has it been spending on, and you will also learn about the Polkadot balance sheet. You will learn about stablecoins and how this situation has been developing, and the overall situation with the departments that exist in Polkadot. You can drop your questions in the chat. We will have an eye on them. I don't always catch them immediately, but there is also my colleague Chipa here. And so we will together be hosting this. I will be presenting, and then Chipa, whenever you feel like there is a relevant question in chat, or you think there is something that we could go into, we can also do that. And then I would say in the beginning, we will have the presentation, and then if there's any questions left where we want to dig into the data, we can then do that in the second half of the conversation. All right. So I feel like sound is working, image is working, we're live, everything looks good. Yeah, if you're watching, let us know in chat, drop us a message, and we're starting. So here on the screen, we have our presentation ready. And yeah, let's dig into it. So as an overview with a few highlights, these are the highlights that we have picked this time. So overall, on the Polkadot balance sheet, there is $114 million. And that was 1 month ago at the end of September, at the end of the third quarter of this year. $114 million is about 28 million DOT. So that's overall on the balance sheet, and that is counting everything from available cash to where Polkadot has provided liquidity into the ecosystem to money that is earmarked for departments, or how we call them in Polkadot bounties, but for this presentation, we will refer to them as departments. The spend in the third quarter has been $17 million, so it's sort of consolidating. And what we find very interesting is that about 1/3 of the total spend is going out via departments. So these are more consolidated or established structures, teams in the ecosystem that are focusing on specific areas like operations of nodes, like marketing, like user experience, events, integrations with DeFi partners, and so on. And then the other interesting fact is that 60% of the total spend has been happening in stablecoins. So Polkadot has introduced this ability to pay in USDT and USDC a little bit more than a year ago, maybe 1.5 years ago. And this number of spend in stablecoin has been rising. So what it means is that the Polkadot Treasury is acquiring stablecoins on an ongoing basis. And all spends are, the number of spends that are happening in stable coins is growing. So we see a higher preference of Polkadot OpenGov to pay in stable coins and not in the native token, which generally gives more predictability for everyone, for the payer and the receiver of the money, because if someone proposes to do something, they typically denominate in what kind of salaries will they pay, or what do they pay for their vendors and so on. Okay, so this is the overview. Moving on, I will present it in two parts. There is expenses and there is the balance sheet. So expenses and the income statement is everything that the treasurer has been spending on. I would say the main takeaway here is that expenses are consolidating. We will go in a few charts here, but what you can already see here in the preview on the top right is that we had this period last year where spends have been quite escalating. But then you can also see that here in the last 4 quarters, they have consolidated on a level of around and under $20 million per quarter. Okay, but let's dig into the details. So yeah, this is the chart zoomed in. And here you can see the spend per quarter denominated in US dollars. So in 3 of the 4 quarters, in 3 of the 4 last quarters, you can see that the spend has consolidated below $20 million. So this was, let's say, a phase of conservatism that you can see in OpenGov, and that is also accompanied by a more conservative approach to what kind of proposals get approved. These are color coded. So you see on the legend on the right here that the biggest position is always outreach historically. So outreach and development have typically been on the same level. So what we mean by outreach is any kind of activity that is intended to reach out to new users, new developers, other parts of the Web3 economy and crypto industry, and also to the Web2 industry. So outreach can be anything from marketing activities, advertising, hosting events, hosting meetups. This can be integrations in other platforms, maybe subsidizing the advertising cost for products in the ecosystem, and those things. We have development costs, and development and outreach are roughly overall on the same level. Sometimes you have one category dominating over the other. So development is everything that has to do with developing the core Polkadot protocol, the software development kits on top of that, maybe some interesting projects that would be worth getting into the Polkadot ecosystem, maybe zero knowledge or privacy preserving applications, maybe explorers, wallets, those kinds of things, dashboards. So as you can see here in the third quarter, and we will zoom in a minute, is that this has been a little bit bigger. Then economy is incentives. So these are incentives towards establishing more dominance in certain markets, or towards subsidizing decentralized DeFi in the Polkadot ecosystem. So then the next one is business development. These are all kinds of activities that, let's say, are a little bit further down in the sales pipeline. When outreach is very marketing focused, business development tends to be focused on maybe a sales aspect or establishing Polkadot in specific industries, establishing products or making deals that would help Polkadot in a certain area. We have talent and education. This is everything with specifically reaching developers or builders in the ecosystem, or specializing activities, hackathons, maybe those kinds of things. Then we have operations. This is everything that has to do with running the network, running RPCs, indexes, collators, validators, maybe running certain governance explorers, dashboards. So keeping the things running that are core to the network itself, running the infrastructure, and also the critical explorers and so on. And then, and I realized maybe we should move our faces here a little bit to the left. So the last one is research, and research is typically original research, maybe looking into specific aspects of what's going on, sometimes also security-related budgets. Okay, good. So moving on, looking into the third quarter, and we will have some specific numbers for you also in a minute. But here, to get a rough relationship of what has been going on in the third quarter, is that you see development here has been dominating with almost half of the spend, 45%. Outreach, big as always, with 20%, and then operations, running the network, 13%. This is a fairly typical distribution. Usually in most quarters, development takes up about 1/3 and outreach takes up 1/3. So if we're just looking at Q3, then we see that development has been relatively higher, and also outreach has been relatively higher. Outreach has been relatively slow. Yeah, Chipa, if you have any questions throughout or comments, then you can also, of course, jump in.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing is, like, it's the first time. So if you go back one before, like the chart before, I think it's the first time since 2023 we see development like twice the size of outreach, except except Q4 last year, but there's BD. There's a lot of BD there. So I think it's also like a little bit in outreach efforts. But this is the first time that development is like more than twice than outreach. So that's I think that's new.
Yeah, absolutely. You see this this big candle here in terms of outreach and also economic incentives here, and yeah, the outreach candles are much smaller, and as you say, development tends to be fairly stable over time if you compare the sizes here. Good. All right. Good. Yeah, so development comparatively bigger than usually and outreach comparatively smaller. Operations is flexible here in relative terms, but in absolute terms, it's about roughly like $1 million to $1.5 million per quarter. So that would be $300,000 to $500,000 per month, which keeps the servers running, which keeps the explorers running, and all the essential infrastructure. Talent and education is hackathons, I believe, this quarter. And also what we register under talent and education is funding region-specific teams if they're very focused on getting developers involved. So this could be one block in East Asia, and this could be Polkadot Africa, in Africa. And maybe it's also tooling. If there's developer-specific tooling, that could also be here. Yeah, business development and then economic incentives. I think the economic incentives were for increasing DOT liquidity on 4 connected chains in the Ethereum ecosystem. Yeah. Good. I think we have that. Good. All right. Okay, here we go into the actual numbers. So we will show this for a second. And what you can see here is that it is denominated in USD and in DOT. And I have to make our window here a little bit smaller. Okay. So denominated in US dollars and in DOT. So these are the Q3 categories, and you see development $7.6 million, $2 million DOT, outreach $3.5 million, operations $2 million. So I think it has been a little bit bigger than usually. Talent and education almost $1.5 million, business development $1.2 million. Economic incentives were $200,000 DOT. So that was $900,000, and then research $200,000. So all in all, we come out at $17 million, $4.3 million DOT. Good. We have more details if you're interested in that, and you will see that when it goes up on the Polkadot forum. So if you're interested, there is also all the historical Treasury reports, and you can go either to OpenGov.watch or to the Polkadot forum, or just type in your favorite search engine Polkadot Treasury report, and you will find our Treasury reports. So I think the only thing that we can add here is that typically it is called an income statement. I would say in Polkadot's case, it's more of an expense statement, because at the current phase of Polkadot, strategically speaking, there is no strong interest in generating on-chain revenue. I think it will become a more dominant and relevant in starting next year when we have smart contracts on the hub, and when core time now is launching with elastic scaling, and we will see a better price discovery. But for now, you can see that the revenue is minimal, and expenses are funded through inflation. Yeah? There has been a recent tokenomics reform initiative. So the DOT will have a hard cap of 2.1 billion DOT, and this will also about halve the inflation next year, which will also affect treasury income. So treasury income next year will be it will be about 9 million DOT per year, so about half, which means 2.25 million DOT per quarter. Yeah? But this quarter, the expenses were about 4.3 million DOT, and the income was 4.5 million DOT. And then there is a treasury burn mechanism, which burned about $500,000 DOT, right? So overall net, the treasury was coming out a little bit under zero, 260,000 DOT in the minus. So if you want to have this as a graph over time, this is what you can see. So there has been the Giotto era here, where the Treasury has been vastly overspending from what it was taking in as an income, and this has consolidated now. Yeah. So we are like breaking even right now. Good. So this was everything that has to do with income and expenses. As I said, if you want to know more, you can also drop questions in the chat. You can also visit the forum a little bit later. But that's what we have right now. Now let's go to the balance sheet. And the balance sheet states how much capital and money does the Treasury have under its control and how is it spending that money. And the biggest takeaway is the balance has been staying stable in Q3. The weights have been shifting around a bit where the money stays within that balance sheet. And of course, because the Treasury is to a high, like as a large amount of DOT, it is mostly correlated to the price also. So, okay, so this is the balance sheet. And again, we will have a few like pie charts for you to break it down in a minute. But if you're interested in all the details, you will be able to look them up. And we have, this is the asset side of the balance sheet. So what you see here is how much cash does the Treasury have. So this is the upper part here. And I think I will have to hide our faces so that you can properly see everything. So just let me do that for a minute. I think I will just, I'm not sure, can I hide our faces?
I'm doing it. Yeah, okay.
Now it doesn't work because then my sound is gone. Okay, so I'm gonna stay here. Chipa has hidden himself so that you can stay visible. And Chipa, I will see you in chat. Okay, so big categories here. Overall, on the balance sheet is $150 million, $114 million. And of that, you see that $80 million is in cash and cash equivalents. So this is DOT, and these are stable coins that are quickly accessible to the Polkadot Treasury. So this is what the Treasury has available as cash, $80 million. Then we have designated assets. That is everything that the Treasury has as cash, but it is put into specific accounts to be used for specific purposes. So first, these are the departments we have been talking about. So there is bounties, which are these teams that are requesting money for certain purposes, and there is marketing bounty, events, meetups, DeFi integrations, UX, all kinds of bounties. So they together have $16.6 million allocated. And then there is the technical fellowship. These are the core developers of the core runtime of Polkadot. And then there is also a small side project of distributing MIF tokens. So all in all, this together is about $26 million. Yeah. All right. And then these are the designated assets. And then the third category is, the third block is these two. So there's non-custodial liquidity provision and loans receivable. So this is capital that has been provided into the economy of Polkadot and is working in the economy of Polkadot. So there is DOT that is trustlessly committed into the hydration omnipool, 1 million DOT. And then there is liquidity in Bifrost and in Pendulum. And these together make up $4.3 million. Okay, so this was the big table. Now to make it more digestible for our brains, we have here this way in presenting it where you see, okay, 70% is available in cash, 22% is in designated assets in the departments, and then money that is there provided into market operations is 7.5%. All right. So we will look at two different ways to present the same numbers, which is, first of all, how is the distribution of this asset? And here we can see a shift. Previously, about 90% of the asset portfolio was DOT, and then the remainder was in stable coins. Now there has this shift been going on where some of the DOT is provided into the hydration money market. It serves as liquidity while it is being swapped for stables. So you see that there is this 11% position of A DOT. A DOT is DOT that is being swapped over times in a dollar cost average manner into stable coins, and at the same time it generates yield while it is waiting to be dollar cost averaged. Yeah? So it's worth the same as DOT, but it's being transferred, right? So it still makes up 90% of the treasury's DOT and DOT derivatives. And then we have 4.2% USDT and 2.8% USDC. All right. So, and then this is the third way to look at this: on which chain is the money sitting? So the assets that we have are not just on one chain, but Polkadot is an ecosystem that consists of multiple chains. So some of these are called system chains. This is basically everything that belongs to the core Polkadot protocol. And then parachains are chains from independent teams or just independent projects. And some of the money is trustlessly provided into those protocols, which you see here. Biggest one is Hydration with 15%. And Bifrost with 3.6%. So that's almost 19% of the total liquidity sits in other chains and is somehow also contributing to the economy. And then the other 80% sit on the system chains. The relay chain 53%, and then Asset Hub 20%, and the collective chain 7.8%. Interesting thing is, just today there was the big hub migration that concluded. So in the next Treasury report, you will no longer see the relay chain because all of that money will be sitting in Asset Hub in the future. Good. So we're coming to the last few charts, and this is the development of the balance. How does the overall balance been developing? And we can show this in two ways: in the DOT balance and the USD balance. And these two develop in different ways because a price also plays a role, as we also see in the comments. And yeah, what we see here is that the Polkadot balance for the early past, we had to estimate it because we didn't track it back then. But what you see is that overall, at some point in the past, Treasury has been sitting on almost 50 million DOT. Right now, Treasury has a balance of 28 million DOT at the end of this quarter. And if we look at the same thing in terms of USD, you see more fluctuation here because there was like this pump at the end of last year. But you see here that we are sitting over 100 million DOT at the end of the quarter. 100 million USD. Good. If you love tables, then this is the second part of the balance sheet. So earlier we looked at assets. Now we look at the other side, liabilities. And the liabilities are fairly small. But the Polkadot Treasury is becoming more sophisticated, so it's actually going into liabilities. And so total liabilities are $4.7 million or 1.1 million DOT. What does liability mean? There is two ways in which we count liabilities. One is the Polkadot Technical Fellowship, the core developers of Polkadot. They receive a monthly reward for participating in the Technical Fellowship. It's not strictly a salary because they are not paid to do specific things, but they get a reward for continually contributing without anyone telling them what to do, right? It's more like an academic institution in a way, but they are contributing to the Polkadot runtime. This is an estimated number by me, which is that in the next year, about $1.6 million in contributor rewards will be paid out in USDT. This is the one thing. And then the other thing is grants payable. And grants payable means these are claims that the Polkadot Treasury has gone into where there is an agreement made with a service provider, a vendor, where they say, for example, the Snowbridge team says, we are building this. Or for example, what is it? The Merkle Mountain Belt. So it's a research team, and they have been proposing this protocol improvements to the Treasury, but there was some skepticism if this will bring any substantial cost savings. And so an agreement as part of the proposal was that a part of the payment will only be paid out at the end of 2028 if the DAO judges that this has been worth the money, right? And so that that was sort of an agreement that was made with OpenGov, but that's a liability into the future. We need to account for that. And so this is why we put it in the balance sheet. So all of these, you see here the current liabilities, everything that's up to in the next 12 months, which is $4.6 million. And then non-current liabilities is everything beyond that point. And that's then a little bit more. Overall, $4.8 million in liabilities for the future, which leaves the Polkadot Treasury with a surplus of $1.9 million. Good, last slide here, and then we can go into a Q&A or have some discussions if there is any questions. This is the stablecoin flow. So this is how the Polkadot Treasury stablecoin balance has been developing over time. And what you see here is the bars here show the inflows and the outflows. So if it's above the zero line, this is inflows, and then you see how the balance is rising over time. And then when there is a spend, for example, blue is USDC. So if there is a USDC spent, then you see this line crashing down because so much USDC has been spent, right? And so you see that there is a little bit of a dance going forward and backward. But overall, at the end of the quarter, there was $3.3 million USDC and $3.3 million USDT available in the Treasury main accounts for spending. All right, so I think that's the presentation. Yeah, that was the last slide. So yeah, Cheaper, if you have a question, you can go into that. And otherwise, I think we can wrap it down, or maybe, I don't know, have a loose chat about everything. Yeah, the report will come as always on OpenGov.watch and on the Polkadot forum. And I would say balance sheet was consolidating. It's of course dependent on the DOT price, since it's so heavily leaning into DOT. So with a declining DOT price, the balance sheet is also going down. And also, since the income is in DOT, if DOT price is going down, then also the income will be lower, right? So this is what Polkadot will have to face as a reality, is that funds are limited, and there will need to be a very clear process of deliberating what it want to spend money on, and so this means having priorities. And yeah, this move towards departments is interesting, and this move towards stablecoins is interesting. So yeah, let us know what you think about this. You can also drop comments later on the video, or just write a direct message if you have any questions. And so I think this was nice and sweet. Thank you for tuning in, and see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.